emergency and alarm will sound. Wardens will assist you with your evacuation from the building, and if directed, please evacuate in a calm and orderly manner via the reception area. Go directly to the evacuation point in the car park beside the town hall. So just confirming the audio and visual recording from now on. And the meeting is open at 3 p.m. There have been no apologies received for this meeting. Oh, but the Mayor is on leave of absence. So I begin today by acknowledging the Palatore and Panhurst past peoples, the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we gather today. I pay my respects to the elders past and present, and I extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. I also advise that any persons attending this meeting should note that an audio and visual recording is being made of the meeting. All persons attending this meeting are respectful of and considerate towards other persons attending the meeting, and language and conduct at the meeting that could be perceived as offensive, defamatory or threatening to a person attending the meeting or listening to the recording is not acceptable. So just moving on to confirmation of the previous minutes, which is page 7 of your agenda, that council receives and confirms the minutes of the last ordinary council meeting held on the 8th of July 2025. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Loader and a seconder? Felt like you were so keen then, you were smiling at me.
I stopped doing that.
Councillor Smedley, you're the seconder. Is there any discussion on that? So all those in, you've got rid of me, John. All those in favour, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
And that is unanimous. Thank you, motion carried. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from councillors?
No, there are no declarations of interest.
And so why do I keep going on?
Sure. Yeah, this is a quick one, nothing on.
I feel like John's trying to make me go quiet. Councillors met on the 22nd of July to discuss the workshop, and the report is in the agenda. And then if you move to page 10, oh, it really doesn't like me, does it? Move to page 10. Oh, sorry, technical difficulties. Or Mayor and Councillors' report. Okay, so there's a list there, but are there any other councillor announcements? Councillor Loader?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would like to congratulate the Blackstone Heights Community News Group, who had their AGM last Wednesday and elected their committee. It's a small group of people who do some pretty wonderful things, engaging their community and basically community building. And it was great to see some new people in attendance. So congratulations to the committee and all the very best, both Councillor Sinfield and House. I'd like to congratulate them. And the other thing was that on the 26th of July, I attended the Local Government Association of Tasmania's Professional Development Day. It was a truly fantastic day with topics like roads and climate change, but also some tips and tricks on how for councillors to look after themselves and to be organised with digital things. So I would commend these days to all of my colleagues around the table. It's a really good day. It's not just about learning. There's always something relevant, and it's an opportunity to meet with other councillors from around the state to network and to get some mentoring, as it turns out for me. Thank you.
So is there any other announcements from councillors? Thank you. To page 11, were there any petitions received for this meeting?
No petitions.
None from the gallery? No. Okay. Community representations. No community representations received, and none from the gallery. Okay, so I'll now move on to public question time. And so there were 2 questions received on notice from Tanya King and Alan Mann, and they have been included in the agenda. And so questions without notice. If there's anyone in the gallery that would like to ask a question now, I'll give you 3 minutes and I'll be able to ring the bell at 2 minutes 30. But if you could just state your name for the recording. Anyone?
Turned on that.
Yeah.
Sound like.
Thank you. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tanya King, and I live in Westbury. I thank directors Millwood and Murray. I do like to point out though that those are questions on notice from the July meeting, but it took a month to get the answers for. But I do thank directors Millwood and Murray for their responses to my questions raised at the July meeting with regard to the length of gravel road that is Jones Street South, and the number of driveways and intersections in similar lengths of unsealed roads in the municipality. What criteria, scoring framework or policy do council currently apply to identifying unsealed roads for sealing in the Capital Works program?
Oh, okay, it's prepared.
Thanks for your question and through the chair. Council doesn't have an official policy currently at the moment for sealing unsealed roads. Council officers are currently working through developing some guidelines, and these guidelines were workshopped with councillors last month at the July workshop. So it's something that's in progress at the moment, but we'll set the framework for candidates for future sealed roads.
Thank you. My second question is in relation to item 13.1 in today's agenda, planning application 250225. I note that the agenda and planning application provides no traffic impact assessment, yet there was one for the subdivision for the adjoining property whose application was submitted less than a year ago. Why was no traffic impact assessment required for this application? And what is the criteria for traffic impact assessments to be conducted?
Thank you again for your question. The requirement for a TIA is based on the traffic generation of the development. So under the planning scheme, if it's likely that a development generates less than 40 vehicle movements per day, then there's not a requirement for a traffic impact assessment. So this development that's being considered today generates 7.8 vehicle movements per property. So it's less than the 40 threshold.
Thank you. And I think the GM had a follow-up answer.
Yeah, look, just to contribute to the answer, you're right, there was a traffic impact assessment on the last subdivision application on the same street, and many of the points of information, the advice in that was still relevant to the application that was submitted that our council will be considering today. So the volumes were considered, and that the advice in that previous TIA was also relevant and considered as part of this assessment.
I believe I'm out of questions or the opportunity to ask them.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, could you just be able to say your name for the purpose of the recording? Thank you.
Hi, my name's Tanya Tyson. I live at 72 South Street, Westbury. So we've got farmland near the new subdivision proposal. The main area that I'm really concerned about is the safety of pedestrians. There's a lot of walkers, dog walkers, runners around the areas, and generally the road is very narrow. We're allowed 2 cars to pass. And now that there's very close culverts to the main thoroughfare, it's going to be actually impossible for 2 breaths to safely to pass each other, let alone if there's water over the road to make it through some rain, or if basically it just does rain and it's quite dangerous in the winter. And then in summertime, the people that are going to build in those houses will have a house full of dust because it just storms and flies everywhere. and basically rocks are pelted, so it's a real safety issue for us, and we do move cattle along the road, and so do the Lawrence Farm that do a thoroughfare of cattle through that road. So it will be a safety aspect for cars and for also pedestrians. That's my position. Question. Oh, basically, what's the proposal of councils to either widen the roads or to make sure that cars can pass and that people can walk along there safely without getting hit by a car?
Thank you. I think the general manager's got the.
Yeah, I can, Director of Infrastructure may contribute as well, but look, in response to your question, I know that council considered the existing unsealed nature and condition of the that particular road, Jones Street South, in our last capital works program. So I think that was following the decision for the additional properties on that road. I think it was 5 additional driveway crossovers that would be installed. I think that the application that council is considering today is an additional 2, one on Jones Street South and one on South Street as well. So I understand that the look and feel of that road is changing for those residents that live nearby. When council considered that in capital works program this year, they did consider the road surface, the drainage, pedestrian, and as things change over time, this isn't uncommon of other roads in the municipality that have had additional subdivisions and additional dwellings come on board. And it's something that we will need to keep on top of, and we'll monitor that road moving forward. And if additional infrastructure is required in time, that council will consider that as the need arises. But I think your question was, what does council propose to do about road widening? We currently do not have any intent to widen the road. And your question, I think, is probably the same around additional footpath connectivity. We currently have no decision to provide any additional footpath on that road, on either of those 2 roads. Sorry, Jones Street South or South Street. However, as things change over time and there is additional dwellings that we expect to be constructed, we'll have to consider the needs changing and increasing over time.
Thank you. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Laura? Thank you. I suspect we'll have more conversation on this when we get to the planning matter. So is there any other questions from the gallery?
It's not so much a question. Can I give an update or on that's got to be a question?
You can make it a question at the end.
I can make a question. Steve Gregory, Westbury Manshed, Councillors, General Manager, thank you for your time today. Just thought I'd give a quick update. We've been going through a planning application for quite a few months now, and we've only just realised that the chain of custody for the land titles has been broken. The Westbury Agriculture Society currently can't find the original certificate of titles, and the Land Office at the moment tell me they can only work on original land titles certificates. Planning's been helpful at the moment. They're working through the project. The solicitor now tells me it could be $6,000 to $7,000 to do all the original documentation and everything else on it. And this is due to when council transferred the land to the Show Society, they put in 4 parcels. So now we've been going through that. The problem is I've got a shed that's been delivered in 2 weeks because we didn't understand all this was going to happen. So for security reasons, I'd like at some stage, I suppose, to discuss with council whether we should store that, or if we could store that in council land and move it again later on. I'm not sure. We haven't done the risk assessment on leaving the shed in the open at the showgrounds. We have a shipping container there that can store some of the windows and doors and all that sort of stuff. So we're just working through it. So at this stage, land title can't tell me how long a piece of string is for this process to take hold. Legal can't tell me how long the process will take. The builder has been putting off work waiting for us to do this. And at this stage, I'm not really confident it'll happen this year. It all depends on lengths of pieces of string. All the funding's there. Council's actually given us approval to clear the site and to level it all off and do all the preparation work while all this was happening. So we're thankful for that. But at this stage, yeah, no one can get, and all the prices keep going up, so the budget's sort of going as well. So at some stage, it'd be nice. I know planning's really been helpful in this matter at the moment, but yeah, we're in a world of hurt for what's happening at the next shift. Right. And the tenancy agreement might have to lengthen out a little bit depending on what happens. And we'll have to probably restructure there. We're getting more and more manning all the time. So we'll may look at opening at different hours or different days of the week, stuff like that. Because there is a growing demand for it. But at this stage, we're just waiting to see if there's another process. Yeah, that's where we sit at the moment. So as a question, at some stage could we work out whether I might be able to secure all the building? It'll be in 3 lots, 3 5-metre lots and things like that. I can't fit it in a shipping container and then get it out easily enough. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. I'm sure we'll be open for discussion, and I think the GM will probably want to make a comment on the titles situation, but I am pleased to hear that you are progressing somewhat slowly, but it is exciting to be able to have delivery of that shed, and hopefully we're going to work with you to help sort out some of the other issues in the background. But did you have anything you wanted to say, General Manager?
Oh, no, look, wasn't aware of the issue with the title there, Steve. Disappointing to hear these things happen, I suppose. Things sort of get lost in knowledge over time. Really pleased to hear the funding was secured. Really pleased to hear that the project is progressing. Certainly open to having a chat about storage options to make sure that all of the equipment is secured effectively. And as far as the lease, I think it's on a month-by-month agreement at the moment anyway, so there's probably no restriction there. So anyway, appreciate the update, and yeah, pleased to hear that it's progressing, subject to one last-minute technicality there.
Is there anyone else in the gallery that has a question? No, thank you. So just a reminder for those that did ask questions today, if you could email them through to the OGM or to give them to Anthea here at the end. But now I will move on to council question time. So there is a council question with notice received from Councillor Sinfield, which is in the agenda. And so councillor questions without notice. And Councillor Lodi, you had one. Did you want to go first?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Taswater's proposal for a nearly 40% price increase over the next 4 years to fund essential infrastructure upgrades has raised questions in the Meander Valley community. The community is concerned about the company's justification for continuing to approve new developments that will place additional strain on the same ageing network. My question is, has Taswater advised the Meander Valley Council of any plans to limit new connections until these upgrades are completed?
Thanks, Councillor. The General Manager is writing himself a note and preparing himself to give you an answer.
Yeah, look, there's a bit to that. The acting mayor and I attended the Local Government Association of Tasmania AGM a couple of weeks ago, and there was some concern raised by a number of councillors around the way that the proposed price setting has been put out into the community, and some unrest amongst some areas of the community around the cost increases. Following that, we had the opportunity to receive, there was a number of opportunities to receive an update from Taswater around that price and servicing plan. And the reasons why those price increases have been proposed by the organisation. I guess I just will say that that is all subject to approval by the economic regulator. So the proposal that has been put out has been in development for a number of years, but the economic regulator will ultimately have a say on what that looks like. But you're right, I can't remember what it is, 8.5% per year, perhaps on average over the course of that 4-year plan. So yes, they are substantial increases, but the reasons being the ageing sewage treatment plant infrastructure within Tasmania, that is the concern, and the future planning around that Taswater has completed over the last 4 years to inform what their capital requirements are going to be needed in the future. So there's a little bit of background there. Are we aware of any limits placed on new connections? No. Historically, we were anecdotally provided with concern around Hadsman, but that after that, Taswater approved the subdivision. I think it was 280 lots in the Hadsman Hills area, so that didn't stop that subdivision being approved. So that was good to see, and Taswater now have a future plan to improve that infrastructure by using the Longford treatment plant. So I guess some of our concerns historically are being worked through, and that's good to see. I think that's probably enough.
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Any other questions from councillors? Councillor Sinfield.
Yeah, a couple. In relation to the men's shed, I don't know whether it's post former councillor King's time on council, but councillor Temple would have been here as well as myself. Didn't we go through title office and adjustments to the showground lands in somewhat recent years? And surely would there be title deeds to do with that? I find it sort of curious that occurred, because there were buildings built across titles, if I remember rightly, at the time. And so I would have thought the resolution of that would be the resolution of the issue that we're now presented with today. But anyway, I'm more flagging that maybe that's something to follow up while the gentleman's here, that maybe that's a solution or a direction to head in to find the answer.
Yeah, so through you, Chair, I think it was about 2018 or 2019, Councillor Sinfield, that's right, we found that some buildings at the West Showgrounds were built over the title line. We worked with the state government, well, the Agricultural Society were trying to get a resolution on that. We came in to support them in that. We paid some fees to assist in that title being adjusted. We paid for some survey works as well. I actually provided that to the president of the Show Society, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, perhaps, councillor. But I don't think that wasn't the title deed. So we didn't receive any title deed information at that time as a council, but the survey information we did receive, we provided to the Agricultural Society.
You are correct, because Tammy was nodding and I remember she was quite forceful in that discussion. I remember it was in my time.
No, well, as I say, I'm surprised that we're sort of revisiting something that I would have thought had been sorted out at the time, sure. But anyway, just flagging that.
Yeah, the second one.
Another question, unrelated. Tip vouchers. Last figures I think I heard is that about 30% of tip vouchers roughly might get redeemed. Is there a mechanism, or should there be a mechanism by council to reimburse or offset against future rates those people who don't utilise their voucher in some way, shape or form? Or is that a discussion that we might have at a workshop? Because it seems to me that you're paying for it one way or another, but you're not utilising it. It's like money for old rope, I think, right?
I think nobody wants to talk about it. I think that we would be able to have a discussion about it when we go back to it again in the budget next year. I think we had a pretty good discussion about it this year, but you're right, not everybody uses them. And I think we do have some data, don't we, on how much they use, but maybe we could be looking at an update at a workshop sometime in a few months when we've got a bit more idea. Do you want to say something?
Yep. So council's offered the tip vouchers, I'm going to say about 5 years, for the last 5 years. Council has never made a decision to provide a reimbursement if they aren't redeemed. We also don't keep a record of whether each individual property title vouchers are redeemed. As far as the redemption percentage, that's changed over time. I expect it will continue to change, as well as we increase the number of curbside collections in the municipality, and as behaviour changes and as the infrastructure changes. I mean, council's formed some good decisions in the last year around our facilities, and we've almost got a final plan of the future state of the Deloraine transfer station as well. So all of these things, I guess I'm just highlighting that things are changing, will continue to. Council hasn't made a decision to reimburse anyone for non-use of the vouchers. If they did, that will come at additional cost to all property owners as well to pay for that reimbursement as well. So it's a bit of a complex area, there's a bit to it, and we can, certainly have more discussion around it. I think we spoke about it at 2 council workshops this year, so we have had quite a bit of discussion around the vouchers.
Any other questions from councillors? You can also provide your questions in writing at the conclusion to Anthea, and she can add them in the agenda. So page 17 is councillor notice of motions. No notices of motions have been received for this meeting, which means now I'll move on to the planning items. So for discussion of items in section 13 of this agenda, council now acts as a planning authority under the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993. Get the planning team to the table. So Planning Authority reports 13.1 PA 25/0225 Jones Street South Westbury. So we're on page 19 for councillors following along. And I have a registered speaker, Tanya King. You're happy to come ahead and ask the questions.
Thanks, Mayor Cameron. Again, my name's Tanya King. I live at 18 Clark Street, and the road that we're discussing falls directly in between the property owned by my husband and I and the subject property that is approved for applied for subdivision. I wish to thank the elected members who responded to my call or message, and especially to those who took the time to drive just 3.3 kilometres from the council chambers here today to see the circumstances on the ground themselves. My major concern with this application and with the broader development trend in our area is the ongoing approval of new developments without corresponding improvements to critical infrastructure, particularly road sealing and the increasing volume traffic. It's neither fair nor sustainable for council to continue greenlighting developments while local roads remain unsealed and in poor condition. These roads were never designed to support the number of vehicles now using them as a result of recent and ongoing subdivisions, and consequently, the residents are facing worsening safety conditions, dust pollution affecting health, water catchments and air quality, increased wear and tear on private vehicles, and a greater risk in emergencies due to poor road access. The impact of increased traffic on unsealed narrow roads includes degrading surfaces leading to frequent maintenance and long-term costs. Dust and erosion impacting nearby properties, water quality and visibility, and safety concerns, especially for children, pedestrians, cyclists and emergency services. Development should never outpace infrastructure. Council has a clear responsibility to ensure that essential upgrades such as road sealing, widening and traffic management are delivered before or in conjunction with new development approvals. This is not just a planning issue. It's a matter of safety, fairness and good governance. Local residents should not be forced to bear the ongoing costs, both financial and otherwise, of poorly coordinated development decisions. The agenda for today's meeting includes a report from Infrastructure Services, which rightly acknowledges that Council is the designated road authority for Jones Street South, South Street and the broader road network in question. That means that the decision to upgrade and seal these roads rests directly and solely with the council. So I ask, how many more subdivisions, how many more building applications, how much more growth is needed before council upgrade infrastructure to match the scale of these developments? We're not asking for anything unreasonable, just that infrastructure keeps pace with growth and the council plans for the long-term sustainability and livability of the area. I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Were there any other speakers on this planning item?
I bet the
Ditto. Thank you. So if there are no other speakers in the gallery, I'll just ask for a mover of that motion. Thanks, Councillor Dudman. Is there a seconder? Councillor Loader, thank you. As the mover of the motion, Councillor Dudman, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Thank you, Acting Mayor, and thank you, first of all, to the planners for the work they've done on this, and to the four representatives, two of which who have come today, Danny, Tanya, Kent and Tanya. I appreciate and understand the issues that you've raised, and we've obviously spoken about this in the past, and we'll continue talking about this. In terms of the development application at hand as it stands, and as assessed, as a planning authority, it does have my support and I will be voting in favour of it today. I appreciate the concerns that have been raised, and we'll circle back on that. But in terms of the objections as they apply to the planning scheme, in my view, it's not sufficient in order to reject the application, purely based on the planning scheme, and that's not subject to my personal view, as I know former Councillor King understands. With regard to the road itself, I will take 5 seconds of indulgence to talk on that, and that is something that I am in agreement that we now need to look at upgrading, and it's something that I've spoken with Tanya about for some time now. I think it may have been as far back as 2022 when I first ran and was elected to council. Obviously, Tanya is aware that in the last capital works proposal, I put forward the sealing of both those streets. I did it the year before that too, and as I discussed with Tanya a couple of weeks ago, I will continue to do that until we have those roads sealed. I believe, as Tanya does, as the representatives do, that it is time that we do seal those roads, and so I'm more than happy to keep working with them on that. But as for the proposal that's before us and the development as it stands, that does have my support today.
Thank you, Councillor Dudman. Councillor Loader.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you to the planners and thank you to the representatives for being here today and for putting pen to paper. It's not an easy thing to do, so I thank you. So I went for a run around those roads on Sunday and I've driven up there a couple of times as well. You can't pass in my Ford Ranger. If another car is coming, I have to put my wheels in the ditch in order to get past another car. When I was running, it was Sunday morning, I was running 25 Ks, just for the record. I was not alone. There were other pedestrians in that area too. So I concur with the Kents that it's used by people. I also concur with Tanya King in that we need to make things livable, and we can't keep just approving infrastructure without, developments without the relevant infrastructure. I totally agree with you. The trouble is, it fits all the schemes. It fits all the things that we have to tick the box for, so we have to say yes to it. And I find that really difficult every time I sit here and have to assess planning, because it's not logical to put that many extra houses, or potentially houses, if houses are built in this subdivision, without doing something about the road. It needs to go hand in glove, that we grow the infrastructure at the same time as we grow the population and dwellings. I've actually got the TIA from the subdivision in January up in front of me, and it was a very sleepy little road back there, and I think we've added another, what was it, Jones Street was 32 vehicle movements per day, and with that subdivision in January we added 48. Now we're adding more, but we're not doing anything about the road. So I'm betwixt and between. It's not logical to agree to this. And I honestly, sorry, am I taking too long? I honestly think that the specific area plan for Westbury needs to be totally re-looked at, because now that it's been applied for quite a few years, people in the community are just like, what? This doesn't make sense. We don't like it. It's not our town. It's not the town we want to live in. So I think it's time for us to really have another look. So I don't want to support this. I would if I knew the road was going to be upgraded. So perhaps we need to really go back to that road and see if we can adjust the capital works program to include it for widening, sealing, improving sooner rather than later.
Thank you. Were there any other councillors that had any questions or comments to make? Councillor Sinfield?
Yes, thank you. Madam Chair, I have a question about Mrs Tyson raised the issue of not being able to pass vehicles, and been mentioned elsewhere, but also about, you know, the trying to negotiate culverts when passing other people. So, and this was raised in the pre-council meeting about the development next door and any crossovers there, and whether they impact on whether the road can be upgraded easily. And so a general comment, if I could, on from staff possibly about the ability to negotiate the road, especially where culverts are and where the new ones are being placed, and where these two additional ones are proposed to be placed. I would imagine I'm not sure if I remember now whether the existing houses crossover is going to be utilised as one of the three, but whether that gets the concrete, so the style of it changes. So yes, just a general comment on that, please.
Thank you. James?
Yep, I think it's probably make a comment on the previous decision that was made, and perhaps the planning staff can talk about the recommendation that's before you today. So, Councillor, as I said before, my understanding was there's an additional 5 crossovers that were approved in the last subdivision application. There's no additional traffic from that at the moment. I guess there is a presumption that dwellings will be built in the future, but there is no additional traffic currently because those 5 additional crossovers have not been completed at this point. They're underway. My understanding of the decision that was formed was that the new additional driveway crossovers, the 5, would be constructed to the required standard, to the satisfaction of Council's Director of Infrastructure Services. Now, I believe that has commenced, but they have not been accepted at this point in time. I'll look at the director. I'll tell me.
Yes, that's correct.
Yep. So that would be the condition for the previous decision, but for the planning staff or director for the driveway condition proposed in the recommendation.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, the conditions require that the two new vehicle crossings are done to the current Tasmanian standard drawing with a reference to the two relevant drawings. Regarding the existing vehicle crossing, there's no intensification of use of that vehicle crossing. So we don't have a planning ground to require any changes to that vehicle crossing at this time. However, in the future, when that lot's developed, that opportunity will be present then.
Yeah. And just the councillor's question around, does that compromise the road use, road reserve sort of area, I suppose? Well, and as the planner said, would have to be constructed to the standard, the Australian standard. So then, no, it would not compromise the existing road area.
Any other questions from councillors on this item? Councillor Simpson.
Not a question, but a comment at some point. Yeah, I think, Councillor House.
Do you mind a question?
Councillor House has probably got a question. I
don't have a question. I'm just going to speak to the application.
My comment is that, and it's probably generic in a sense, but it does go to specifically this issue, is we have some new subdivisions being built around the municipality which have their own roads being constructed as part of those subdivisions. Up near the cemetery in Deloraine is a perfect example. The developer has been required to develop those roads to a standard and then they get handed over to council. What mechanism do we have, or should we have, for what you might argue is incremental increase in South James Street and South Street, but it's effectively the same thing at the end of it. It might be being done in a different way, but what mechanism do we have or should we have for a similar treatment that we get some form of contribution from the developers of these subdivisions that would assist financially in actually developing the road to what would be argued a decent urban standard?
Did you have anything to, I could see your brain ticking over, Director Krista. Did you have anything you wanted to say in response?
That's right.
Just, padding it out while Tash comes to a mind. I guess we need to look at the assessment of this application that's before us. And you're right, there might be a cumulative effect. I think it's probably where you're going there, councillor, because as a council, we, as a planning authority, need to consider, does the application that is before us justify, is it required for the application that is being assessed? So that's why it's only limited to the particular circumstances of the application that we receive. But I guess, yeah, your point there around the cumulative effect of it, over time, it may be a policy decision of council, but yeah, team leader, town planner.
I think the general manager has effectively answered that question. I just want to go further to say that when we do these assessments, it's a case-by-case assessment of the application before us, and we have to have a look at the intensification of that development on the road network as it stands. In this particular instance, I believe the threshold is about 100 vehicles, and with the use of this proposed subdivision, it's still going to be under the 100 vehicle threshold to be at the standard that was acceptable currently. So that probably explains that a little bit further. As for a contribution for road upgrades, in this particular instance, because there's no additional demand to increase that to a further standard, so increasing the standard of the road because the threshold isn't reached yet, therefore I don't believe we have an appropriate power to be able to require a contribution to go toward that in this particular instance.
Thank you. And Councillor House, you had a comment to make?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, Acting Mayor, Deputy Mayor. Again, I'd like to echo, I think, what's been said around the table here. Thank you to the planners as always for the work they do. And also thank you to the representatives, because I think the points that have been raised are valid and they are not unreasonable in any way. I will be supporting the application also for the reasons that were spoken about here, but I echo what's been said in that I take particular note of ex-councillor King's comments that infrastructure keeps pace with growth. It is getting to that point where it really does need to be consideration, I think, of doing something with that road. I've been out there myself to have a look, not just with this application, but the one previously. I think it's flying ball. I'm not going to double guess anyone on the council staff that have more experience than me on these matters. But I think I don't think it's unreasonable to suggest that as new homes are built there, and I guess that will start happening sooner rather than later, we really need to be relooking at that road. I'm not necessarily saying now, but as far as I'm concerned, I would like to see it up again next year to look at it as part of the capital works program. And I'm pretty sure that I'll be voting in favour of doing some work on that road if that is the case. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Temple.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Following on from Councillor Sinfield's question and the subsequent answer, looking at the answer, I would interpret that the development that takes the traffic flow beyond the 100 a day, when that development is before us, sounds as though that development would be responsible for the whole cost of upgrading the road. So that's not how it usually works. So we're just putting off a problem here, in my opinion.
Director, did you have anything you'd like to comment on?
Through you, Acting Mayor. I guess it's again, we're looking at that, the assessment of that particular application and what a reasonable contribution would be for them to contribute to any upgrades that were required. Council would still have a requirement to contribute.
Just clarification, is that at this time or a future date, the contribution?
Future date.
So and that will be against the development, the developer or the current owner at that date?
The current owner doing the development? Is that what you're asking?
If we're going back to the developer at a future date, or if this development will pay for a proportion of the road upgrade at a future date?
No.
All right.
No.
So the developer that crosses the 100 cars a day threshold will pay for the whole upgrade.
It's hypothetical.
Yeah.
It is a hypothetical. It'd be a contribution towards, not the whole upgrade.
So the developers, prior to crossing the 100 threshold, get away scot-free. The developer that crosses the threshold pays for pays a proportion of the upgrade.
Can I let the General Manager make a comment that might help with some clarity?
Well, in theory, if it's required for the development, councillor, you'd be correct. That's right, because the existing arrangements have already been taken into consideration for all of the previous decisions that were made. So you're right. But for today, we are talking about 1 lot to 3 lot subdivision. So 2 additional lots, which in theory would be 2 additional dwellings and 2 additional driveways in the future. But for today, there is no condition on the road proposed for the motion that's been moved other than the driveway crossovers. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Are there any other comments or questions? I think I'll let you have one more, Councillor Singh.
Well, I took out from the words of the General Manager about, maybe looking at a policy that might more astutely deal with the issue, so that in fact it may well have had a direct bearing on this case if we had a different trigger mechanism for a contribution. It doesn't have to be, you know, the developer that's putting into extra driveways pays hundreds of thousands of dollars, but some sort of cumulative contribution in an urban setting, as this is, may be the way ahead. So yes, it's not the answer to this right before us today, but it may be the answer to this going forward.
Thank you. And just before I go back to the mover and seconder, I guess my comments will be that I think we probably had a very similar discussion at a previous planning item in a very similar area where we did discuss this road and discussed about what we might do into the future. So I think that's really highlighted the need that we need to come back to this particular road and potentially policies that can help us navigate this into the future. But on that note, Councillor Loader, did you have any further comments to make?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you for the discussion. The trouble is we don't get the opportunity to discuss some of the issues like growing infrastructure in any other public forum than when an application comes before us. And I truly do believe that the criteria on which we have to decide on this is fraught with errors and doesn't really pass the community's sniff test. It just doesn't. Having said that, I do fully understand that the planners have been scrupulous and used the framework that they have and made the recommendation thoroughly, and I do understand that. I honestly do think we need to revisit this road sooner rather than later, especially when houses start to be built up there.
Thank you, Councillor Loader. And Councillor Dudley, do you have anything to wrap up?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I'll summarise in two parts as I began. In terms of the application as it applies to the Tasmanian Planning Scheme, and as our powers and duties as councillors apply, I will be supporting it and we should be supporting it on that basis. But I will make the point, as has been raised about the roads, I'm glad that we've had a renewed discussion about South Street and Jones Street South. And now that there's so much interest at the council table for those two roads, I am looking forward to the next Capital Works period when I, for a third time, submit the proposal to seal these roads, that it will have the support of my colleagues. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dudman. And with that, I will call for the vote. So all those in favour, please say aye and raise your hands. You have to remember everybody's name. Oh, okay. Cameron, Conshaw, Dudman, Smedley, Sidfield, Loader and House are for. And those against, Councillor Temple is against. And so that motion is carried. So council no longer acts as a planning authority, and we'll move on to the other items. But if there is anyone in the gallery that would like to leave now, take your chance. Ask councillors to turn to page 124 in preparation. Okay, so page 124, governance and community wellbeing, 14.1, review of policy number 49, media communications. Is someone that would like to move that motion? Councillor Dudman, thank you. And someone to second that?
Sure.
Councillor Conshaw. So as the mover of the motion, Councillor Dudman, would you like to take the opportunity to speak?
I would, thank you, Acting Mayor. Look, the policy as it stands, thank you to Anthony and his team for reworking it. It doesn't substantially change anything, but what it does is it makes the duties and responsibilities of each of us much clearer. Of course, it is important to note, as the last policy did as well, that this policy doesn't limit the ability for councillors to talk about issues in public and in the media that is important to them, and that's something that I have done the entire time through this council, and I will continue to do that while I'm elected in this position. What it does do is it does set a clear parameter for both us as the council and the community to understand when an official position is being made by the councillor who is making that position and stating it, as well as when personal positions of each individual councillor is being raised. But of course, this policy deals right through to staff as well and covers our engagement with the media and with communications more broadly in, I think, a concise yet clear manner. So I'm more than happy to support this today.
Thanks, Councillor Dudman. And Councillor Cronshaw, do you have anything you'd like to contribute?
Yeah, I like to say that I do actually support this motion.
Terrible microphone issues today. I'll put on. Thank you. Is there any other councillors that would like to make a comment on this item? We are going to move through quite a few policies today. So all those in favour of policy number 49, please say aye and raise your hands. I believe that is unanimous. Was that yes, Ron?
It is. I have a personal aversion to one bit in there, but I won't die in a ditch over it.
Or up a hill.
Or up a hill.
On a chairlift, perhaps.
Okay, so page 137, we have a new policy, number 7, equitable conduct. Would there be someone willing to move this motion? And I'm not going to look at you, Councillor Dudman, because you're moving along. You can? Okay, Councillor Dudman, thank you for being such a good team player. Is there someone that would like to second the motion? Councillor Loader, thank you. Councillor Dudman, would you like to speak on this motion?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Just briefly, there isn't much to discuss as it obviously relates to our obligations under the Equitable Conduct Scheme, and it does intertwine with the next item as well, but happy to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Loader?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, happy to support. It's clear and concise. It's always good to have policies that are in relatively plain English and easy to apply, and it leaves no doubt. So yes, I will be supporting.
Thank you. Any other councillors would like to make a comment or ask any questions? No? Okay, with that then, thanks, Anthony. I will ask for the vote. So all those in favour, please say aye and raise your hands. Again, also unanimous, so the motion is carried. Page 147, 14.3, review of policy number 96, safeguarding children and young people. Thank you, Anthony. You've been doing a lot of work on policies. Is there anyone that would like to move this motion? Councillor Dudman. Thank you. You have moved every single motion today. And a councillor would like to second that. Councillor House, thank you. Councillor Dudman, would you like to speak on this motion?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Same as the last one, it is just to comply with our legislative requirements. In this instance, updating it to reference the Child and Youth Safe Organisation Act of 2023, where relevant, and how that applies to this policy. Once again, thank you to Anthony for his work on this. Whilst it is some minute changes, it does take a fair bit of work getting through all this and making sure we do comply with our legislative requirements.
Thank you. Councillor House.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I think both this item and the previous one were discussed at workshop, and I wasn't at workshop, but I was very pleased to see that this is given priority. Safeguarding of children and young people, there can't be anything more important in our society. So not only am I supportive of these documents, but I'm supportive of us as a council taking these matters so very seriously.
Thank you, Councillor House. That's correct. Is there any other councillor that would like to comment or ask a question? No? We're all very quiet. Okay, I'll put that to the vote then. So all those in favour, please say aye and raise your hands. And unanimous again. Thank you. The motion is carried. No trigger questions for you, Anne?
No.
Okay, moving on to page 166, 14.4, Tas Networks Northwest Transmission Development Agreement. So is there a councillor to move that motion, please? Again, thank you. And someone to second that motion? Councillor Smedley, thank you. Okay, Councillor Dudman, would you like to speak on this motion?
I would. Thank you, Acting Mayor. Look, let's be clear that this is an agreement that relates to the Marinus link and the project that surrounds that. There is obviously a lot of content. There is obviously a lot of contention in the community about that proposal, and I respect and understand that. And I'm always open to share those concerns as well. But in reference to what is before us right now, it is the agreement for the area in so much as it affects our land, and with reference to that, it is solely just the airspace. Noting that the impact that this project has on landholders has gone through appropriate channels, and it is my understanding that there is just one outstanding objection from a landholder, and I respect their right to object in the process through that. But the question before us today is whether we provide the access that has, let's be realistic, no impact on us, or whether we attempt to stymie this for whatever questionable reason, I'm not sure. So on that basis, because it is a simple process in terms of this agreement, it does have my support. That is not ignoring the contentious attributes of the project. It is just accepting that we are looking at a very small scope of that project as it applies to the council lands and not anything outside of that.
Thank you, Councillor Tudman. And Councillor Smedley, any comments? Is there anyone else from Councillor Loader?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Dudman, for naming it up. It is about Marinus Link, and it might be about. Can't hear me?
I can hear you, but I don't know if you've been.
No, my mic's not on either.
Yes. Right.
It was.
Right done.
Nobody home?
It was on.
She's back.
Now I remember what I said. Thank you, Councillor Tudman, for naming it up. This is about helping Marinus Link on its way. It is about airspace, but the difference is that, according to my research, and I'm happy to be wrong, but according to my research, the airspace that the transition lines currently enjoy, the towers are 24 metres, but the new towers are going to be 44 metres, so that's an extra 20 metres high. And I have a bit of an issue because the detail, and I believe I'm correct here, the detail that we received from Tas Network that we're talking about now didn't really go into specifics about that. And so I just find it a little bit difficult that we're having to make a decision on something without actually knowing all the details. I appreciate it is airspace, but it's pretty different looking airspace. They might be narrower, but they're heaps taller. So it's like, why wasn't it just named up?
Through you, Chair. In a workshop discussion, there was material that was provided that did provide that detail around the differing impact of the easements. And although there will be heightened towers as part of this, it actually doesn't necessarily affect the easement width on the ground, and taken on average, the easement width will actually narrow under the new towers. That's my reading of the detail and how it's been explained to me as well. So although the airspace goes further into the air, the easement is actually probably reduced on average in terms of on council's land.
Yeah, any other questions or comments on this item? Councillor Sinfield?
Yes, thank you. Mayor, which in fact you are while you're acting, according to the Act, for those in doubt. My issue is, I think it's a lazy and a poor outcome for things that are going to benefit other people and not us. There is no direct benefit to our municipality whatsoever from having either the existing line or the upgraded line. There is no offtake, no on-take between Palmerston and the Nook. At both ends outside our municipality. In my view, there are far better solutions, and I think it's just laziness on their part and a cheap option on their part. And my vote will be cognizant of that. And so I won't be supporting it. And as I say, the visual aspect alone is a poor outcome for a remarkable part of the world that people come here to view. And as I say, I just think it's a lazy answer. There are suitable alternatives and they're not being looked at. And, you know, it's akin to a few beads and trinkets. It's all very well for the Tas Networks to give us $5,000 or a bit more if it's required to cover the legal bill. But I think there are better ways of going about it. And so for that reason, I won't support
it. Just in response to that comment around no direct benefit. I guess as a council, we just want to make sure that the power supply to our customers doesn't go backwards. We don't want to be left with a poorer electrical supply to our area than currently exists. And I guess on that basis, we want to make sure that so we see merit in approving the request that has come through, so that those easements remain in line with the transmission area that's currently provided for. So I guess we just don't want to see it go backwards. Except your point that in your opinion there's no benefit, so that's fair enough. I'm not disputing that.
I feel I need to follow up on that. I mean, the not having it here wouldn't be a detrimental impact to anyone in our community. That line simply is a transit line from Palmerston, which is in Northern Midlands municipality, direct to the Nook in Kentish. There is no offtake or ontake at all, nor is there any proposed as part of this arrangement. So if it didn't exist or it was put underground, either in the existing easement or via the highway, that would make no net change to the current scenario whatsoever.
And I think we've probably had a few discussions over this offline before, Councillor Sinfield, and I think I do understand your concerns and what you raise, and I know that you're quite passionate about it, but we're not debating the project today. We're debating this easement. So I know that you have a lot of that. There's a lot you'd like to input into the project, but we need to get back to the fact that this is the easement deed that we're discussing today. So is there any other comments or questions from councillors around this item, Councillor Temple?
Yes, I understood. Well, it was said earlier during this item that it was part of Mariners Link. I don't understand it as being such. I thought Mariners Link was an undersea cable, and the components in the state were wind farms in the northeast and pumped hydro. That was then going to give a constant supply heading that way. But I thought this isn't directly part of Mariners Link. It's perhaps an add-on to it. It wasn't originally put to us in that way. I may be wrong.
Again, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to answer those questions, but unless you had anything to add, Anthony, just like to go back to the easement part of the question.
In response to Councillor Temple's comment there, my understanding, as was explained to me, is that yes, the justification for the project doesn't have to include Mariners Link, but I can't claim to know enough to say that with certainty. But yes, that was my understanding from what I've been briefed from Tas Networks. But yes, you're correct to raise that the scope of what is being considered here is an easement deed and a construction access agreement, not the broader project on its merits. So I'd ask councillors to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the floor? Table floor? No. Councillor Smedley, did you have any comments? Councillor Dudman, wrapping up.
Thank you, Acting Mayor or Mayor, whichever you prefer me to call you. In terms of the comments I made initially, which was intended to limit the scope of what we were talking about, it appears that failed. But I'll just reiterate, as I have said, that the net benefit that this project and its associated output that brings to our community should be noted rightfully, but it is not the subject before us. It is simply a matter of whether we approve what is a small handful of easements above in our airspace that from, I guess, the debate aside about whether higher or lower power lines is good, it does make the decision easier for us because there is less impact for our road users. Not that there was a great impact from the older power lines. So on that basis, it is a simple question, and I will be supporting it.
Thank you. So this vote's not an indication of whether you support the project as a whole. It's a vote on the easement deed. So thank you for clarifying that. Appreciate that. Thank you. So all those in favour, please say aye and raise your hand. Cameron, Conshaw, Dudman, Smedley, House, and those against, Sinfield, Temple, Loader. The motion is carried. So I now need a motion to close the meeting to the public. Dudman, and you are going to win a chocolate today for moving all the motions. And oh my God, the pressure!
I thought you moved the minutes.
I did. So moved.
I do think it was Councillor Loader, but I don't
think we need to go back in.
We're not going to go back.
You're on it, I don't
recording. Okay, all those in favour to close the meeting, please say aye and raise your hands. Unanimous. Okay, the meeting. We can now end the live stream recording, and the meeting to the public is closed. It's not open. You could say that we weren't on it. 4:13, and thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you.
Someone else is going to have a moving motion in a minute, and I've got you two picked out. Because you'll get the second. Yes, have a break. Yes, have a 5-minute break.
I think you should get a chocolate.
Volume, they said the volume like
Who's somewhere?
Yeah, but they're not as loud as you.
I can't go to Switzerland without having a good chocolate. That's the one.
Volume thing, not a.
Don't stopping in.
Kevin.